Okay, I'm back. Hello, everyone. A lot of people have been wondering where I was or where I've been, and I've been thinking about doing this for a few years. So I typed up a little something. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible, but here it goes. Where have I been for the past few months? I've had over 75 people text me saying they love me and wanted to check in. Or wondering where I've been since they haven't seen me post on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and they miss my stories. Well, here's where I've been. I've been finding the ultimate coping mechanism for depression and anxiety. For starters, if you've got depression and anxiety, listen up because I'm about to open your eyes. And for those of you who don't have it or understand it, listen up because it's time you have a little more insight into what it's like living with depression and anxiety. And I'm not talking about you're depressed because someone passed away, because you got dumped, or you're anxious for a test tomorrow or a job interview. The temporary depression and anxiety that makes sense to have, that a lot of people get and go through. I'm talking about the genetic anxiety and depression that is caused by chemical imbalances in your brain. And I'm the prime example to prove it's a thing. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what the heck, Kenzie, depression? No way. I would have never guessed. What's she have to be depressed about? And for those of you who are my friends, you are more than likely aware I have major depressive disorder since I'm very open about it. But for those of you that don't know, here's my story. And just like with any other illness such as cancer, it's a little different for each person, so the way my depression and anxiety work may not be exactly like someone else's who struggles with it. But here's my personal journey, a day in the life of major depressive disorder. Since I was little, I remember never having an appetite for breakfast. I was too scared to go to dance class without my older sister, so they let me be in her dance classes. I was too scared to walk to class by myself off the bus. I woke up with anxiety, but as a child didn't realize that's what it was. I just knew I was queasy, so never wanted breakfast, always scared to go to school or scared for the next day of life, but not sure why. I always cried myself to sleep and hated sleeping alone. When I was alone is when I was the most sad and would cry myself to sleep every single time. I'd wake up anxious and go about my days scared of everything, then go to bed sad, not understanding why I was sad. Of course, I told no one about this all of elementary school, middle school, high school. And why did I keep it to myself, you're probably wondering. Because I didn't know how to tell people I'm sad, and I cry all the time, but I don't know why. Because when you tell someone I'm depressed, I cry myself to sleep, I'm anxious, they typically say, why? And when you don't know the why, then what do you even say? I don't know, I just am? Yeah, people don't get that. At least when I was growing up, I didn't get it, let alone anyone else. I was always told, you're so dramatic, Kenzie. It's not the end of the world. You're so negative. You always look at the glass half empty. Little did people know that, yep, that's exactly how I looked at life, and I mentally could not help it. I didn't understand why I couldn't see the glass half full. I understood that there were children dying of cancer, that there were people losing family members, that I had it good because I had a roof over my head and clothes on my back. It makes no sense for me to be depressed. I had no self-esteem issues, I didn't lack confidence, I always thought I was attractive, I always had a lot of friends, was always one of the best ones in my dance classes, always got good grades, have an amazing family. What more could I want? Why would I be depressed? Trust me, it didn't make sense to me either. I couldn't figure out why when one little thing like a bad test grade would feel like the end of the world to me. Like going to school and having a test felt like I was entering into a war with my heart racing out of my chest to the point I almost make myself sick. Why my mind thought, if I fail this test, I won't graduate, then I won't go to college, then I won't have a job, then I'll be homeless, and then I'll die alone. Dramatic, right? Yep, exactly. That's the brain of someone like me. It's dramatic, and let me tell you, it's exhausting. I don't want to live like this. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. Do you really think someone wants to live their life looking at the glass half empty instead of half full? You truly believe that's the life someone wants to live? Let's be real. It's terrible. And what's worse is people don't get it. People understand cancer and diabetes. They don't understand depression and anxiety. So it's hard. It's hard to live with a mental illness because unless you've got it, you don't really ever get it. Not saying that cancer or diabetes by any means is easier to cope with, but it is easier for other people to understand. People just get it. When someone tells me, just be happy, that's like telling someone with cancer, just don't have cancer. I can't just be happy. My first major depressive spiral that we can account for was my freshman year of college when I went through my first heartbreak. I had started on anxiety medicine that summer because my anxiety had gotten so bad I could hardly keep food down before going off to college. Most of my doctors and people in my life just sort of like, oh, she's going off to college, it's just a lot of change, we can give her some anxiety medicine to cope with the changes and she'll be fine when she gets used to college. Little did they know this wasn't just normal anxiety that most kids get when going to college. It was crippling, no sleep, no appetite, panic attacks by myself in my room constantly. I told no one how bad it was because in their minds, they'd say or think, Kenzie, seriously? You're so dramatic. It's just going to college. It's not that big of a deal. People do it all the time. Trust me, I'm aware it's a thing people do. But in my mind, it was the hardest thing to do. Anything that is a big change in someone's life, in mine, feels like the end of the world or the most impossible, daunting challenge. Well, fast forward halfway through my freshman year of college, I went through an unexpected heartbreak. For most people, when you get your heart broken, you're bedridden and depressed for 2 to 3 weeks, crying, want to be alone, feel like your life is over, but you manage to start to eat, go to work or school, and carry on with your life as best as you can. For me, I can't do anything. I physically and mentally shut down to the point that I would rather my life be over because it legitimately feels over. Basically, when I go into a depressive spiral, it's usually caused by a major unexpected life change. I will say God had prepared me for this all along to help people understand how this works, because since kindergarten, I've lost over 12 friends far too soon. And if you're from the Cobb County area, you're no stranger to funerals of friends, and God bless all of them. But to put things in perspective, losing someone in a death is easier for me to cope with than a lot of other life challenges. I know that sounds messed up, but just hear me out. When someone passes away, I can cope with it easier. I can understand and process that they're in heaven. I can feel like I can still talk to them and that they're watching over me. They're in a happier place and, the good die young because they fulfilled their purpose on earth and get to go be with our Heavenly Father. With other things like breakups and just daily life that goes wrong, I don't cope with it well at all. I have no hope and no understanding. I see no light at the end of the tunnel. My mind races in all these negative what-if thoughts. The glass is dry and empty, and I can't see any drops in it. I know, sounds dramatic. It is. But that's how people like me are. You won't ever get it, but at least you can try. So basically, with my major depressive spiral, I was home for Christmas break when it happened. For over 2 weeks, I had no appetite, no desire or cravings for food, which for me as a huge foodie is not normal. I had gotten down to under 90 pounds. I had no desire to shower, no desire to leave my bed. Just wanted to lay in bed and do absolutely nothing and talk to absolutely no one. Now, since I was always the complete opposite, fun-loving, bubbly, full of appetite girl, I knew this wasn't right. Yes, I had always been anxious and sad my whole life, but I could usually get about my days and it didn't hit till morning and night, severely. This was a constant, would not go away, deep, deep depression and anxiety that I knew something was wrong. I knew this wasn't how I should be feeling, and I'd seen my friends and siblings go through heartbreak, and my reaction was lasting longer and worse than most. Being the open person I am, I finally had a reason to go to my parents and say, I'm depressed, I need help. They told me, it's a heartbreak and I'd be okay, just give it time. But I knew this had been going on my whole life, and it was only getting worse from here, to the point where I felt I had nothing to live for, which I knew wasn't normal and wasn't okay, but I didn't know how to think any different. I couldn't just snap out of it. I told myself it'll all be okay. None of me believed it. I knew something was off. I told my parents I wanted to speak to my cousin who struggles with depression and anxiety. He's my same age and had been to Ridgeview to manage his depression. He came over and talked to me and within 30 minutes told my parents, she needs to go to Ridgeview. She has major depressive disorder like me. This isn't just a normal, she's sad. She's got what I've got. They right away took me to Ridgeview and the next day for an evaluation, and sure enough, I have major depressive disorder. Every single symptom. And this starts my journey to finally understanding my own brain that I was so lost in all these years. I went to a month of outpatient therapy. This is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week. group therapy, one-on-one therapy, and all sorts of things to learn different coping mechanisms on how to manage your depression and anxiety. Let me tell you, it's not easy and it's not fun, but it is necessary. Just like chemo is necessary for cancer. I started medicines and therapy, and by January I was able to go back to school, and my family and close friends had attended therapy sessions and read some books to better understand my disorder as well. They all felt guilty for telling me all these years I was dramatic or a negative thinker. They finally understood I couldn't help it, and wow, did that make me feel so much better. Finally, people somewhat understood and believed me that I wasn't just negative. I didn't want to be that way. It wasn't my choice. I literally could not help it. So fast forward to a lot of different medicines later and a new boyfriend, 2 years into college, I decided to go off my medication and figured with all the therapy I had gone through, I finally felt strong enough in my coping mechanisms and that my life was in a stable place where I'd be able to manage my depression and anxiety without the medicine. And for a while I did, until things fell apart again. We broke up for 2 weeks and I could hardly go to class, leave crying, but knew I had been through a breakup before, so knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Couldn't really see it, but before things got unmanageable, we were back together. Fast forward 2.5 years out of college. Me and that same boyfriend had been together for 6 years now. To cut the story short, that ended in unexpected heartbreak. The first month I was in shock, but I could hardly eat. I was having a major depressive spiral, but just the starts of it. My mom told me I should get back on my medicine, but I told her, no, I'm stronger now. I can cope with it. And I'll just start going to therapy once a week and work out and use all my coping mechanisms like staying active and social and praying and exercising. Well, sure enough, weeks went by, and as it started to sink in that it was really over, I got worse. I went from 111 pounds in 2 months to just 93 pounds. I had absolutely no appetite. If I tried to eat, I couldn't keep it down. My anxiety wouldn't allow it. I would wake up throughout the night, heart racing, body shaking, at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 8 a.m., each time trying all the coping mechanisms I could think of. Meditation apps, sermons, prayer, Netflix, reading, walking, deep breathing. You name it, I tried it. Nothing would work. Even telling myself, God has a plan. You will get through this. It will be okay. But I didn't believe it myself, and I sure as hell couldn't see it or feel it. I found myself for weeks and days waking up at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 8 a.m., shaking on the bathroom floor, over the toilet gagging from sick feeling of anxiety in my stomach, crying to God to please make it stop and to please help me, screaming, why God, just make it stop. It got so bad to the point where I tried to go on a walk with my best friend Ella. I had worked from home that day, so hadn't left my apartment. As soon as I walked outside, I was overcome with anxiety and had a panic attack. A few days later, I tried to go out to eat with my brother and his girlfriend. And going on walks and going out to eat were things I had always done daily and loved. Well, we went to dinner, and right when the food came out, anxiety took over. I was rocking back and forth in my chair, felt tears coming on. We had to leave to get the food to go, as I had a panic attack in the car. I realized I couldn't even leave my apartment anymore. And that's when I decided my mom was right. I needed to go back on my medicine. She told me, Kenzie, you're like a diabetic that needs insulin. And she was right. Before getting back on my medicine, I had asked so many friends for prayers, for peace and patience and strength. Prayers, I'll be okay again. I would conjure up all sorts of what-if thoughts in my head. What if he's got a new girlfriend already? What if I end up alone? What if he never loved me? You name it, I thought it. I told my close friend Hannah all these what-if thoughts, and her immediate response was, that is Satan. And you know what? She was right. I tried to remind myself from that point on, as soon as a what-if thought crept in, Kenzie, stop, that's Satan. But that wasn't easy, until I got back on medicine. I went and saw a psychiatrist, and my prayers had been answered. Within 24 hours of taking my medicine he prescribed me, I slept through the whole night, was able to attend my friend's birthday weekend in Blue Ridge, and had no panic attacks and ate like a pig. You can say it was the medicine, but if you work for, you could say it was the medicine, but if you ask me, it was all the prayers. With all the prayers, God gave that doctor the knowledge to put me on the medicines I needed to finally start my healing process. And that's where this journey of a lifetime truly begins, and where I discovered the ultimate coping mechanism for not just depression and anxiety, but for life. As soon as I got on medicine, I realized there was a positive side and could finally start to see the glass half full. The medicine opened my brain to a way of thinking my brain doesn't allow me to have without it. But what I discovered in this process was even greater. The combination of medicine and faith is one that cannot be beat. Like I had said before, I kept remembering my friend Hannah texted me, "That is Satan." So when I had a negative worry thought or anything was creeping in, I would try to think that. Well, before getting on my medicine, I was talking to my rodent and fields mentor, Jenna, and she was checking in on me. And this was before medicine, so I told her I wasn't doing well. I was down to 91 pounds, I can't go to work, I can't eat or sleep, and I need to go back on medicine and need a lot of prayers. She told me she's so sorry, said a lot of sweet words over me, and then said she can't help but think, "But God." When she said that, I kind of got it, but not really. I couldn't see the "but God" in my life at all, until I started medication back. I finally could see the "but God" and was able to realize each time there was a "that is Satan" thought, I'd quickly turn it to "but God." This became my new coping mechanism, and no, it didn't come easy. When we first broke up, I told all my friends, "Please just pray he comes back." Everyone told me, "I will pray for God's will." I didn't get that. I didn't want God's will. All I wanted was him back, and all I wanted prayers for was him back. Once I decided this time in my life, this adversity God brought me is to bring me closer to the Lord, that's when I tried to make it my main focus. I tried. For weeks I would pray, "God, I trust you. I trust you'll bring him back to me. Please bring him back. Please make us happy together. Thank you for all the blessings in my life, but all I want is him. I don't want anything else." Some wise friends, strong in their faith, told me to pray for different things, such as God's will, clarity, understanding, peace, and patience. I was honestly scared to pray for clarity or God's will because I wasn't at a point where I truly knew what that meant or truly trusted God. I thought, what if God gives me clarity and it's not what I want to see, and that it's not what I was hoping for? What if his will for me isn't that man? What if it's someone else I don't want? I don't want that. So I tried to take their advice, even though it was hard, and I said, "God, I pray for your will. I pray you give me strength and peace and patience." Slowly, with effort and work, my prayers became deeper and more meaningful, and before I knew it, I had a relationship with God. The one where I loved going to church. I was going in the mornings and in the evenings. I stopped watching Netflix. I started listening to sermons and reading Christian books. I formed a small group. I was listening to Hillsong United Pandora. I started to realize, wow, God is answering my prayers. Months before this breakup, I had prayed I'd grow stronger in my faith. I had prayed that when things went wrong, I'd still have faith. Well, here I was, stronger in my faith than ever, to where my prayers finally became, "God, I put my life in your hands. I trust you with my whole heart and my soul. I put my relationship in your hands. You know what my heart desires. But if it is not in your will, then please change my heart and my mind for your name's sake. Let me be a vessel to show everyone your glory and to show them the love of Jesus Christ and the glory of God, so they can dwell in the house of the Lord forever." I finally knew what it felt like to fully trust God, and I finally knew what it felt like to have a Christ-centered life. I had never had this before. I no longer desired more money, more clothes, more trips, a big wedding, a big ring. I found contentment and happiness in Jesus. And when you find that, that is the coping mechanism to conquer life. I finally realized my purpose. I was placed on this earth. We were all placed on this earth to live our lives to glorify God. Our sole purpose is to live our lives to glorify him and make him proud, and to share the love of Jesus with others, so they too will get to live a life glorifying God and then dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Once I trusted God with my heart and soul, he gave me clarity. And it wasn't a, yes, he will come back, or no, he'll not come back. But it was a, you have Jesus Christ as your everything. And because you found that, you will be fine with or without him, without that man. Because you have found true contentment and happiness in Jesus Christ. Therefore, no other earthly thing can compare. And it's the most amazing feeling I've ever experienced. This feeling of peace and freedom like I've never felt before. Freedom from my fears. peace from my anxiety. It's not easy, trust me. Satan is always lurking, trying to slip into my thoughts and life. And when I feel anxiety or doubts coming on, I know that's him. And I know I need to turn to God. Open scripture, read, pray, listen to worship music, and quickly the peace of God will come over me. I can honestly 100% say I am happier than I've ever been. Not being on social media has been a nice detox. You don't realize it, but you're constantly seeing what other people have and what you don't have, making you always think you need more. Seeing other people travel, you may not realize it, but makes you start to think you should be doing that too. By deleting social media, I didn't know what others were doing with their lives, unless I was with them and they were telling me firsthand what was going on in their lives. But seeing it and hearing about it are different things. I remember after a month of not having social media, 2 of my best friends came over to go on a walk. They were talking like, oh yeah, those girls went here and traveled here and did that, and did you see this girl's engagement ring and this and that and that? I quickly noticed that I was getting anxious. I realized I didn't know these friends were traveling and that this one girl had a big engagement ring, and I started to think those were things I needed to have to be happy, to be content. I realized in that moment what social media had done. Without even having it, just hearing about other people's lives made me think mine wasn't enough. So the impact of actually seeing it, hundreds of different people's multiple times a day on multiple platforms, constant reminders of what others have that you don't, it's not easy. I didn't realize the effect it had on me until I took it away. Removing the constant reminder of seeing what others have made me focus more on what I do have and how amazing everything I have is, and that I don't need more, and that if I have Jesus, he's all I need. So that's where I've been.